I'm excited to welcome this week's Tiara Talk Show guest, actor Benny Wasserman, to the show. Welcome, Benny.
Well, I'm overwhelmed to hear from you.
Well, I guess we should probably introduce what you do for a living, because it would make no sense when I start talking about how I think you're so amazing. But one of the things a lot of people know you for is your resemblance and impersonation to Albert Einstein, which is your Disney connection. But I thought we'd talk about your beginnings in the entertainment industry. Like, what was one of the first gigs you had as this character?
Actually, the very first gig I had was a Japanese production for a commercial in Japan, and I had to learn how to smoke a pipe. And at first, when this lookalike manager called me, I actually hung up on him because I thought it was just somebody joking, fooling around. And but he was very serious. It was only a couple of weeks after I submitted my picture to somebody in my son's law office, who was responsible for me to even get involved, because he seemed to think I resembled him, even with my short hair and no mustache and whatever, and my glasses. But a week later, after taking some pictures of myself, and getting that first phone call and getting that first gig, I didn't even know what a gig was.
Holy cow.
And that was the beginning of a 25-year second career, which is a little bit longer than the longest I ever spent in the aerospace business in one company, which was for 25 years.
Holy mackerel. Well, honestly, that sounds like fate was on your side just to get that gig. And I can only imagine what was coming in through the door for the next 25 years. And one of those things was Ellen's Energy Adventure, which came out in '96 at Epcot Center at Walt Disney World. And a lot of people it's been there for over 20 years now, and it recently just closed. And honestly, to be quite honest, Benny, I was looking online on the IMDb page, and I saw your name, and they never credited anybody at the end of this particular attraction, even though it's like a film. So I was so surprised I found your name, and I thought, it'd be great to talk to Benny about this project, and we got in touch. I'm so glad we did.
Yeah, there are things I did over the years that I didn't get credit for in the credits. Mainly because I shouldn't say most of the time, some of the time I didn't have any lines.
So did somebody contact you specifically, or your agent, just because they saw the uncanny resemblance to you and Einstein to work on this particular Disney project?
Correct. It was my agent, if you want to call him that. It's a different kind of agency. They're really not agents in the sense that, you have your SAG, Screen Actors Guild agents, which, by the way, I had to make a decision at one point in the beginning whether or not I wanted to join Screen Actors Guild. I was given an opportunity, but the initiation fee was so high, but I went ahead and did it. And because I did, I was able to do the biggest thing I ever did was the Pepsi commercial.
That's right.
In year 2000, and that lasted for a year.
And for this particular project with the Ellen attraction, I went back to watch the film. Unfortunately, as I said, the attraction closed in August of 2017, of course. And
but it's on YouTube.
Yes, it is on YouTube. That's why I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch this before we get to chat, because I wanted to pay attention just to you. Because as we had talked beforehand just a little bit, and you said, oh, but I didn't have any lines. And I said, but your part is so funny just for being there and not saying anything. It actually makes it funnier, in my opinion. So I was paying attention very closely to your character, because everybody's supposed to be looking at Ellen and Alex Trebek and Jamie Lee Curtis, but watching you was such a treat. It was so much fun.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
The first thing that really I noticed was when Ellen comes onto the stage, onto the set for Jeopardy, and she starts touching your hair. Now, it looks like you weren't expecting that, and you're kind of pushing her away. Was that something you were expecting, or was that planned?
No, that was spontaneous, and it just showed my surprise. What are you doing there? Which I never care if anybody touches my hair, but I don't know. Maybe I was trying to be a little, I don't know what word to use, theatrical or something. I have no idea, because I try to follow directions from the director always. When I've tried to do it, sometimes what they call over the top, they say, no, just stick with the script. The very last part where I walk off and I think I'm given a light bulb or something.
Yes, they call it the bundle of energy. They say there was a lot going on for that specific attraction. Like, there were a lot of special effects, and how many takes do you think it took for the initial Jeopardy scene, like the first one?
Well, I'll tell you, it took a few, and when I say a few, what I remember is I had to show up 3 days in a row for that for this scene.
Wow! And where was this? Was this in California or?
Oh yeah, it was at one of the studios here in LA.
Now, what was it like being with everybody on set? Individually, what were Alex and Jamie and Bill Nye and Ellen like? What did they talk to you when you guys weren't shooting? What was that energy on set like?
Okay, fortunately, I do remember some of that. And when you mentioned Bill Nye, I certainly was able to get in a conversation with him. He gave me one of the first books that he had written for children and autographed it, and that was very nice. Jamie Lee Curtis, I'll never forget. She just had her hair done with the hair people, let's call them, and she goes over to a mirror and she starts messing it up like the way she likes it. And Ellen was very congenial, very, very congenial, and I had probably the most words with Ellen's mother, who was also there on the set. That was really early on in this whole business that I was doing, and I wasn't the kind of person that was outgoing.
Well, speaking of Ellen in particular, recently she actually was joking about the fact that the attraction closed and she wants her auto animatronic. So I wonder, really? That would be great if she had you on the show. I would love to see her reunite with you and Jamie Lee and Bill Nye, and Alex, of course.
I mean, I think the contract that supposedly my agent has was for 10 years. And then it ends up going for 11 and 12 and then 20. And I was just so pleased that it was that popular. But at any rate, I have thought of that myself. That would be nice. Well, not just that gig, but in so many of the others, when you are waiting around for them to change camera angles, lighting, all of that, and how underappreciated I've always felt that the people in the background aren't getting recognized like they should. Because otherwise, these shows just couldn't be made the way they are. And other than that, I really didn't have. Occasionally, I would have conversations with those, whether they were doing the sound or the carpentry. My God, whatever it was that they were doing. And the other thing that I still do is when I'm called, if I go to schools, grade schools, and talk to kids about my youthful years as Einstein, because he hardly liked school, and I just try to encourage kids to read. That's another story, and that's in one of the Chicken Soup books also, about how I turned around from being someone who hated reading into someone who can't even express it with the word love.
Well, it opens up a whole different avenue for children to use their imagination.
Absolutely. Now, Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge.
Did you ever get to Epcot to see yourself in the attraction?
Absolutely. I took my oldest son and his two daughters, my wife, myself, and we were able to go through the back door and get invited to go in, without standing in line. And then I was introduced to everybody in the crowd, and, Shy Me just ate it up. So I was able to do that.
Well, before we end, I have 3 Disney-themed questions I ask each guest. I call them the Fab 3. So we'll start with the Donald one, which is, as a child, what Disney film was one of your favorites to see in the movie theater?
Okay, I'll say the Mickey Mouse cartoons.
And our Goofy question, what Disney character do you think would be your best friend if you met them in person?
Pluto, for sure.
And speaking of Pluto, our Mickey question, if I asked you to name any Disney song at this very moment, what immediately comes to mind?
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Can't go wrong with Mary Poppins, but I can't thank you enough, Benny, for being on the show, and I will cross my fingers and my toes because it would be great to see you have a reunion with Ellen. You know, it's great to finally talk to you on the phone.
Okay, well, it's been a pleasure talking to you too.
Dr. Einstein.
You have no money, sir, and that means we're going to have to say goodbye. However, we want to thank you for coming here today, and we do have some lovely parting gifts for you backstage.
Yep, here's a parting gift for you right now, Al.
It's a long-lasting, low-energy light bulb. Enjoy the efficiency.
Boy, there goes a real bundle of energy, huh?